All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Youssef. Thank you for joining me on the 22nd episode of One to Come Up, a podcast where aspiring entrepreneurs can learn from the best of the best, those on Forbes 30 under 30. I'm excited to hear about your career today and learn all about Scalelist. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
So, Mr. Youssef, do you think you could introduce yourself to the guests a little bit so everybody knows who you are?
Yeah, of course. You can also call me Youssef or Yus. In fact, so my name is Youssef, and a lot of my friends call me Yus or the Yus. Although autocorrect really loves to call me yourself. I can't tell you how many emails I get with "Hi yourself" instead of my actual name. So you don't have to call me Mr. Youssef, but rather Yus or Youssef. I am a Austrian Moroccan founder who's based in Hong Kong. I've been around Hong Kong for the past 7 years. Actually, I just got my permanent residency approved a few months ago, which takes 7 years to get. And I'm a agency founder turned SaaS founder. I started my career as a salesperson at Google and Amazon. That was in 2013, 2014. I primarily have experience in sales, business development with tech companies primarily. Did a bit of a turn in venture capital as well. So working in an investors team for a conference, but also in a startup accelerator. And that really gave me a lot of insights on not only sales for a specific company, but how companies do grow and how important it is to have a very strong acquisition function in a business. So that led me to start my first agency, which is a lead generation agency based out of Hong Kong and Singapore. We do cover primarily Asia, helping companies penetrate the market as well. And from there, spinned off a business called Scalelist, which is the primary company I'm focusing on. It is a SaaS business, so software as a service. While the agency is still maintained, we have somebody who runs it. I focus now on Scalelist. So that's it's in a very short nutshell, quick review of where I come from and what I'm doing.
Well, perfect. Yeah, I do really appreciate that overview here. So, I guess normally I like to go back in time a little bit to when you were in college.
Yeah.
So you went to, I'm going to mispronounce this, Rowan Business School, and yeah, and then you also went to Wharton here in Pennsylvania.
Correct.
So, and
Yes.
so could you tell us a little bit about your experiences at these universities, and more importantly, how'd you get into Wharton? I guess what I want to know, and
Yeah, sure. I can give you a few hints. So maybe entirely context. I was born and raised in Morocco, so speak probably also justifies a lot of the French accent you'll hear. Rouen Business School is a business school that's in France. It's one of the top tens in France. And I got in 2010 for a master's degree. And as part of the master's degree, we also have exchange semesters to do, and one of which was at a university in China called Zhejiang University in Hangzhou. This is also where the Alibaba headquarters were. And I also had a time with the Wharton School, which I did online actually at the time. It was in the early days of online school, so I was not in Pennsylvania physically, but I did follow courses from Wharton. So that's how I got certifications and degrees from those three universities, part of the master program I was in.
Cool. So, after college, I like to kind of go chronologically with the podcast throughout your career. You
Sure.
started working at Google. So,
Correct.
yep. So you were an account strategist in
Mhm.
Ireland, actually. So you're kind of all over the place here. So could you explain
Mhm.
your time there and your role there, and why Ireland, I guess?
Yeah, I would say Ireland is a beautiful country. I highly advise anybody who thinks to travel in Europe to do spend time in Ireland. It is its specific and own set of country. Beautiful. Still have a very strong emotional connection with it, but primarily, Ireland is also known actually for having a lot of tech European headquarters. So, for example, Google's European headquarters, so actually Europe and Middle Eastern headquarter is based in Dublin in Ireland. So it's the biggest office there. And that's where I started really my career. So I'd say, yeah, I got drawn by Google and stayed also for Ireland. I was there in Ireland for about 3.5 years, about a year in Google and the rest in another company as well.
Yeah. So after Google, you went to Meta, another
Mhm.
firm based in Hong Kong. They're a little bit of like a seed
Yeah,
accelerator, to my understanding. So if you don't
that's
mind
right.
explaining, what that is, and this is the first seed accelerator that we've actually had on Asia on the podcast.
Mhm.
So I'll be kind of
Nice.
interested to see how they vary. We've had some in Europe, some here in America, and
Yeah.
Asia.
No, I can also go tie the links with the previous career. I can't say that everything was absolutely thought through, as in like when I started my career, I knew I would end up somewhere, as in like with that goal. But I knew that I wanted to work in tech. I wanted to work with fast-paced businesses who understood also the value of being online. So Google was really the entry point for me in this. But quickly I realized that I was also more interested in working with say when I say younger companies, it's not necessarily just young founders. It's rather like companies that had just started a year, 2 or 3 years ago, and needed to grow specifically very fast. So Meta is part of a venture fund slash accelerator called Nest.vc. You can still take a look at them. And it's Meta is like their entrepreneur club slash incubator for early stage companies. And I joined them back in 2017 when I quit basically my life in Ireland because I wanted to move with the company I used to work with, but they didn't really have an office in Hong Kong or else. But I knew I wanted to be based out of Asia. I started building an attachment with the region, but also an interest in terms of long-term planning with Asia, just because it's two-thirds of the world's population lives there. A lot of growing economies with 10% GDP growth, or like true figures growth for the GDPs year on year. So I thought, okay, I need to position myself there. And Meta itself is an interesting funnel of entrepreneur club that is global, with a base also in Africa, so developing countries primarily, and an entry point to Asia from Hong Kong. So I worked with that company for about 2 years. Extremely interesting. I gotta say, like if you need want to network, it is good to be in an environment like this, where whether that's an entrepreneur club, an incubator, a startup accelerator, simply because you are surrounded with people who are solving several problems, sometimes very different problems, but they all face the same business issues, anywhere from sales to hiring to, okay, tech, fundraising, or else. These are common problems amongst businesses, regardless of their industries. And then you can go, of course, industry specific, be like, hey, I'm maybe more interested in healthcare, or maybe more interested in gaming, or else. But yeah, if you're starting out, it's a great way to get very creative, actually.
Awesome. So I guess that kind of ties into your first company that you actually founded, Scale Lab, in 2018. So could you, I guess, it was an earlier iteration of Scalelist. So could you explain,
Mhm.
why you started that and kind of what led you to Scale Lab?
Yeah. Of course, yeah, a big realization in like the jobs that I had, whether that's sales at Google. I had worked for Amazon as well as a sales. Then with the startup accelerator, I had a big realization, especially when I started working with the VC fund slash accelerator, where I understood that it's not because you're raising funds that you're necessarily going to grow. A lot of companies, close rounds, so you can hear 500 million, 10 million, 50 million, 500 million, etc. Big rounds, but it's not because you have the capital that you will necessarily grow. Your growth will rely on your ability to acquire new users, customers, well, like, depending on the type of business you're in. But acquisition is an extremely important factor of a business growth. And so a lot of the times the issue is either for companies who cannot necessarily grow at the pace that they want, it's primarily a matter of resources. So we don't have enough people to do that. But sometimes it's also not a matter of resources, like, hey, we can actually hire a lot of people, but it's a matter of skill set in the sense of are we good enough at doing this? So the Scale Lab was born by the idea of helping those businesses to actually scale, because at the time I was receiving a lot of demand from different founders who was like, hey, we know your experience at Google, we know your experience at in sales. Can you help us figure out a plan for the next 6 months, 12 months to actually grow and acquire new customers? And so very quickly understood that that need was quite a critical one. There will always be a need for companies who need to sell, but don't necessarily have either the resources or skill sets. So I started Scale Lab as a outbound slash lead generation agency that helps service and tech companies to grow by using cold email, LinkedIn, as well as cold calling. So it's really an outbound function. We go after potential customers. Example for even for yourself, Danny, if you tell us, okay, I need to find sponsors for my podcast, or I want to find new interviewees or else, we'll be like, okay, we can identify all of them. We can get in touch with them on your behalf. And as soon as somebody's interested, we just like transfer them to you in the way so you can take over for the sale. It's really like a plug-in to an existing sales team. This one is still running. I mean, it's been around for the past 5 years now, actually six in September. And from there, I mean, having an agency is a good way to segue into SaaS because you identify problems at scale that are repeated across every client and that you can then solve with tech as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear that has it could be used for my podcast also.
Of course.
I don't know if you ever had a podcast that you've helped, but I wouldn't mind being the first. Um,
For sure.
yeah. So how did what I noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs on the podcast here, especially those that started their companies, kind of like 2018, is that they had issues with the pandemic and also kind of like the zero interest rate policy, that kind of bubble breaking. Is that a European thing also? And did you have this similar issues?
In fact, I mean, for us, I think we're one of those businesses that actually, so I can't say benefited, but we had good growth during COVID, specifically because we're helping companies to sell with like in a non-physical manner. So everyone who's doing door-to-door or meetings or conferences and so on was stuck during COVID, and they had to find a way to sell online. So that's email, LinkedIn, phoning, for example. Anything that is done at the distance is something that we are good at. So in fact, during COVID, there was a time where we had just started and had also received higher demand. It was obviously not planned, and I can say that, okay, I don't like to say the word benefiting from this because it was not necessarily a good time for most, but because we were online, it played to our advantage for sure.
Awesome. So that's kind of interesting that some, didn't benefit, but were able to, I guess, get the positives from it. So,
Mhm.
and then you did eventually transition and you started your own separate company, Scalelist. So could you
Correct.
explain, why you, separated from Scale and, what
Uh,
Scalelist is now?
Sure, of course. I mean, maybe to be more specific, we didn't necessarily separate. It's of course another business. It's a second business. It's still addressing the same market, but solving a different problem. With the Scale Lab, if you want, it's a service. So you hire us to do work for you, as in like finding new customers. But there were also existing teams who didn't necessarily need to delegate or like outsource the lead generation work to us and do it for them. They already had their teams, but they needed tools and softwares to be able to do that more efficiently. And this is where Scalelist came in, because Scalelist basically helps salespeople to draw totally it's called in sales terms, it's called the total addressable market, just a fancy term to say anybody who you should be engaging with. So for instance, in your case, Danny, we can think about you're interviewing Forbes 30 under 30 entrepreneurs. With Scalelist, you can basically find all of these people and potentially also get their work emails, mobile numbers if you need to, any basically any information that allows you to find them. But not only that, it's let's say if this year there are new 30 under 30 entrepreneurs, I mean, we will be able to notify you to say, here are the new people, and these are the emails, these are the phone numbers, so you can get in touch with them. So just basically like helping you be more efficient.
That's a pretty amazing technology. Maybe I'll have to check it out after
Yeah,
the.
take a look.
Yeah. So how have you been able to grow your company and to expand yourself? I mean, you're helping others expand. What are some of the challenges that you have, and what are some of like the growth sectors that you're focusing on?
There's multiple levels of challenge. For anybody who's listening, who's thinking about becoming a first-time entrepreneur, or you've already started and you're facing some roadblocks. I mean, obviously, it's very difficult when you have little experience, which was my case. I had little experience in terms of running my own business because primary thing that realize is when you switch from having a job to a business is you switch your 9 to 5, or even though you work probably longer than 9 to 5, to working 24/7. Actually, so first of all, there's nobody who tells you to stop, and it's hard to sustain that. You can do that maybe for 1 week, 2 weeks, even a month, or sometimes even more. I mean, in my case, I did that for probably years, and it's not good for your health because I did burn out, and in fact, I burned out twice for two separate reasons. One was overworked, and the other one was basic frustration of not growing as we wanted. But that's one thing to be aware of when you get started. Another one is actually, even though you're looking to, so we're serving, for example, we're acquiring new customers for others. Serving ourselves in this acquisition was not as easy as we thought. We thought, hey, we're good at sales, we could sell. Yes, we were. But in fact, every agency that does this is also good at sales. So you're competing against a lot of salespeople who are offering the same thing. It's called a commodity in the end. And the question is, how do you differentiate yourself from a commoditized business to something that is high value? And that took us some time to actually understand. It's a mixture of investment in our personal brands, offering more value than is perceived, really like making it as high as possible. One recommendation I can give is to read as well. Read and be informed. Leave time for yourself to train yourself. That's probably like you are your highest and most valuable asset. So train yourself. One book recommendation I can give is 100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. You probably know the character, but amazing business book for anyone who's getting started in a product or service business. Really, really good. It's an easy read and gives you a lot of strong frameworks to get set up and really grow as you want.
Definitely. I always love a good book recommendation. I'm always looking for new good books to read. I think that's actually the first book recommendation on the podcast, also.
Nice.
So, a lot of firsts today. So, also, as someone that has been kind of focused on the startup sector from 2018 to now, like 2025, almost 7 years here, can you tell us how the landscape has changed a little bit? What do you notice that there are some things that you would do differently if you started it right now, or is it like completely different?
Well, I think every day, every year is always different, and it's we can always look back and say, what would I do different? There's two elements in looking back. One is, do I look back and do I come back in like 6 years, 10 years ago with the knowledge that I have right now? That's one thing. Or are we talking about if I were starting today instead of 10 years ago with still the knowledge that I have, what would I do? In both cases, I'll give you an answer. So, of course, if I was starting 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when I got started with the knowledge that I have now, we'd probably grow a lot faster because some mistakes or roadblocks, resistances that we had, things that we learned along the way about hiring people, how to manage, because we had to make a shift initially, myself and my co-founder, when we started the business, to hiring our first employees. And it's very different when you run a business with two co-founders and then you start managing a team, a very different set of business, but also running a service business versus a tech business are not the same thing. One is run with people and the other one primarily with systems. And Danny, I mean, the biggest change that you can really take advantage of right now is AI. I think it's not just like incredible. I mean, I'm not going to talk in just in high level terms. With AI, you have a tool of leverage, which a lot of businesses didn't have. And even when we started, we had automations, but AI is at a very different scale. I can give you a simple example, whether that's internal efficiency of how you run a business or how you can grow your business. In terms of running, there are meetings. So we all work remote in my company. So with my founder, and we have actually a new shareholder who came in January, we now see each other every other month for a week or 10 days. We call that the founders retreat. And what we were able to do, we did it our last time 3 weeks ago. They took 1 week. I think we achieved more in that founder retreat than we achieved in any previous 2 years founder retreats combined within a week, thanks to AI, just because we
Wow.
had frameworks and we had brain power that we didn't have before to come up with the solutions that we were looking for. Obviously, you don't take everything for granted, but you get structure. If you know how to engineer good prompts and you know how to structure it, you can be extremely, extremely fast. So that's a tool of leverage that if you're not using today, it's not only you're missing out, you're actually going to be left behind. And I can highly advise, like, if there's one thing I would do today, which I actually do right now, but if I were to get started, I would spend at least an hour a day just learning to use AI. And not so one is learning to use AI, you're gonna hit the ceiling, and then it's gonna be stay informed with the novelties, because all of what you're gonna learn, you'll be immediately be able to implement it in your workflow.
Wow, that's pretty incredible that you're able to leverage AI like that and to really be so much more productive. I mean, this is amazing technology, this AI. So you've dealt with over $1 billion at Scalelist, across various companies. And now, have you recognized any patterns with some of the most successful companies that you've helped? And where do you kind of like see the future of this all going?
Mm. Yeah, I think, like, I mean, there's a combination. Like, we like to give, one reason for the success of one thing, but it's always a combination of several things, whether that's timing, whether that's team, skill set, capital. There are a lot of things that work out. If I have to bundle them for the sake of it, because this is an entire conversation, we could spend days talking about this. I think, and this is what I'm trying to engineer for myself as well. It's a combination of things. Like, we both of us, Danny, we can have the same idea, but the execution is something else. So, a lot of times people are afraid of sharing what their idea is because they feel like, okay, somebody's going to steal my idea. But we can put this idea in front of 100 founders. There will be one founder who will do that much better than the others. There's not going to be an equal level, simply because that's how the markets work, but also how the execution can be. So execution means, what strategy do you have? How do you implement it, aka the people and systems that you have. It can be also the network that you have. Let's say if I have a huge following on social media that is exactly for the market that I'm targeting for X business, and you start with a zero following, there's a deficit for you. I can be less of a, if we're talking about a software company, I can even not be a developer, and you are a developer and you can build much better products than I can do. I'll be able to distribute it and you won't be. So that's the second part, or the third part rather, which is your distribution. Execution is like who you work with, how you deliver, and how you distribute your service. And the companies who are succeeding, they always have this. They work with A players who know where they're going and what they want to achieve, and they have a much stronger and better work ethic than their competitors, and they know how to distribute what they're doing.
Cool. That's really amazing to hear that you really do need not just a product but also a market and an audience to sell it to. That's actually something I'm still working with on the podcast. I have the podcast, but
Nice.
now I need the viewers.
How
Um,
do you go about it at the moment?
at the moment, some I've been very fortunate. Some people have shared me on their social medias. They've put me,
Nice.
tagged me in their posts. They've reposted mine, and also
That's cool.
marketing. So like after this, I'm gonna take like 2 or 3 snippets here, and I'm gonna put them on Instagram, Twitter,
Very
and
good.
TikTok. So
Nice.
I try to build up my following there. I get some views. So I'm actually still working on that, but I'll have to figure that out some more.
Great. No, that's good. Keep on going. Distribution is the key thing.
Yeah, and actually, how your partner put me in touch with you is I have like an email campaign now, so
Yeah.
that sends out like hundreds of emails promoting the podcast. So.
Nice.
That was kind of cool that he directed me to you, and it
Awesome.
cool. So, Mr. Yusuf, I'm sorry. We've been
Very
over
good.
your entire career now, from when you started in college to Google to Meta to Scalelist. We've been over the past, the present. Normally, I like to kind of end the podcast, looking towards the future. So, where do you think everything is leading towards? The patterns of successful companies. You understand AI. I guess
Mhm.
where do you think the future of Scalelist is going to be?
Yeah. I think, like, the future scale list is highly dependent, of course, on the future of the world. And I think I can give like a quick 2 cents of how I think the world is going to evolve and how Scalelist is going to evolve into this world. Obviously, we did a quick segue on AI, and I think it's impossible to not do that segue in any business. It's like when internet came in, companies would say like, I don't need the internet, I'd rather be face to face and calls and so on. These are companies that still worked in some way, but they didn't have the leverage that internet brought in. It's the same thing today with AI. AI is a tool of leverage. There can be a lumberjack cutting a tree with one axe, but you can have a saw, which will be faster, or even like an electric saw, which will be even faster. So that's the idea of like a tool can give you leverage. AI, it's a huge leverage. And I think we'll see, for instance, the first solo founding businesses or solo founding entrepreneurs who will be billionaires just as solo founders, thanks to AI, because they'll have the leverage of using these tools to their benefit. And it's going to be, every time you hear that, is today is a lot easier to be an entrepreneur than it was yesterday. And that's a trend that I think is still going to keep on going and is in a way accelerating. So the world that we're going to live in, I think in the next 5-10 years, it can probably even be shorter, but let's say in 5 years, depending on adoption, is a world where you're not going to be searching anymore on Google. You're not going to be maybe interfacing with something aside from your own AI, which will be kind of your navigator that does everything for you. Or you will have vertical AIs, one to train you if you are doing workouts, one that can help you find podcast interviewees, potentially can even interview people for yourself. There will be a stage where you won't know whether I am an AI actually, because my AI can talk with my face and my voice and so on. Maybe you are an AI as well, but at the same time as you're interviewing me, you're interviewing thousands of other people or AIs. And that's the leverage I'm talking about. Right now, you can only do one-on-one. And so if you can do this higher leverage, you have insane amount of reach. And so that's the world I think we will be evolving in. And Scalelist for this, Scalelist helps salespeople to find potential clients, so identify them. You can imagine this at a much larger scale with doing conversations with thousands of people at the same time, being able to notify small movements like, hey, this person has changed jobs, or have specific information that can help you really build trust with that person, even deliver content like something. Let's imagine, Danny, I never spoke to you before. I'm a salesperson and I want to sell you something like, let's say, a mic for your podcast or whatever. We can imagine this AI thinking about creating specific content, whether that's a video, whether that's a purchasing plan for your studio or else. It's something that you'll find valuable that's going to send it to you and be like, hey, I know that you're doing this podcast. Check this out. If you're interested, we can talk then after. But it creates all of these things. These are like anecdotal examples, but that's where we're going to evolve. And I think that Scalelist is going to put a play on this, where we're going to be kind of your sales assistants on the day-to-day.
Well, that's almost scary to think about because it's replacing humans almost. I hope it doesn't
Yeah,
come to that, but it would be nice if we do reach that level of automation and are
yeah,
able to leverage it.
yeah.
Yusuf, I really appreciate you joining me today on the podcast. I really certainly learned a lot from it, and I think the viewers also will enjoy it. Definitely.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Record. Stop recording.